we're going to do. Okay, so our speaker today is Nicole, and she's a part of our MOPS program already. She's been a part of MOPS for 4 years now and is honored to speak today. Nicole enjoys working as a speech language pathologist at her son's school part-time, but lives for Wednesday mornings at Capel Bible Fellowship, where she teaches large group instruction time for the Women's Weekly Bible Study. Her 2 children, Ethan, who's 7, and Chloe, who recently turned 5, are full of life. This fullness of life forces Nicole to embrace and enjoy the simple things in Carrollton, like walking with mom friends, talking with neighbors, and the latest development, picking up street sports skills with local neighborhood kids. She wants to make home and community matter. Nicole is fascinated by the relational dynamics between people, and this growing interest eventually led her to a deep dive into studying personality analysis measures, including Myers-Briggs, the StrengthsFinder test, and Enneagram. And she is thrilled to present this to you today. So here she is.
Thank you. Okay, I talk loud, so I don't know if I'll need this.
You do.
I do? Okay. You won Bunko last year, so I'm going to go with the winning answer.
I'm just saying, I've been on the credit, and they always say, I don't think I need it when you're on the credit.
Well, I feel very at home here. There is the mic on our table. I don't know. Anyways, if I use my hands, I might get animated. But anyways, I feel really honored to be here, like Emily said, and it really feels more like being at home, just because I've been here for 4 years. And so I'm just excited to be here today, and it kind of feels like talking to friends more. So thank you for having me. Okay, first of all, I want to know who has heard of the Enneagram. Raise your hand if you've heard of it. Okay, raise your hand if you think you know your type. Okay, raise your hand if you think you may be mistyped. Took a quiz, one of the 3 ones. Okay, maybe a few. Well, we're going to explore this today together. There are some handouts on your table that there's going to be 2 today. The first one, let's go ahead and pass those around, leaders. And you know, before we get going, I really want to compliment MOPS, because I think they do compliment our steering team and Ruth and everyone. It's such a welcoming environment, isn't it? It's just so awesome to be here. And I loved it so much that last year we had a speaker who asked a question in group that said, what do you want to work on most as a mom? Do you want to work on your mental health, your emotional health, or your spiritual health? And for our group, I mean, most everyone said spiritual health. So I said, well, you know, I'm not perfect, but I can start a Bible study. So because I loved MOPS so much, I wanted this compassion and acceptance kind of going into this new thing. I invited my table, and a lot of them are with me every week on Wednesday, as Emily mentioned. So it's kind of a fun thing to have them there, and just means a lot. And when we were kind of developing it, they said, well, what do you want? Well, I want big tables, and a leader each one. I want a table to bring breakfast each week. They sound familiar? So we're kind of, yesterday we did celebrations, you know, so I just really appreciate the model and just all of you. So thank you for inviting me here. And the first thing I want us to look at with the Enneagram as we're starting to dive in is maybe as a young mother, or currently as you have multiple children, which by the way, I was thinking this morning, I've got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we say we've been parenting for 7 years, but don't you think it's like 2 different clients? So really it's like 7 plus 5, so it's really like 12 years. So it's more like the mileage versus the years. But anyways, but as a young mother, I really had no language for some of my frustrations, and I found the Enneagram a really helpful tool for me. And I was always fascinated, as Emily mentioned earlier, with just dynamics and relationships, and so I just loved it, and it's really been the most helpful personality typology tool that I've come across. So there is a quote by one of my favorite authors and researchers on Enneagram. You have Russ Hudson, Suzanne Stabile, Mario, he does a lot of Enneagram and business type things. But Seth Abrams is probably my favorite. And he has this quote. He said, "One can make the case that the Enneagram is inherently a model for engaging.
It shows us 9 different unique perspectives, when held compassionately, can turn walls into windows. I love that idea. The tendency today is going to be for you and I to want to type our family members and kind of say, oh, that's totally them, that's totally them. What I want to invite you to is to hold all of these perspectives with compassion, and that's the first goal of the Enneagram, is compassion. The second one is awareness, or you could say self-understanding, understanding yourself. So I like to say, draw a circle around yourself and think about yourself as we're kind of going through these 9 different perspectives. It is also a call to wholeness. So I think it's important that we understand how we were created, and it's just such a beautiful expression, these 9 different types that you'll see. It's such a beautiful expression of humanity when we're in our integrated state, when we're in our growth state. So I'm going to go through some misunderstandings with us kind of understanding that the Enneagram brings information. And the first one is, number one, the misunderstandings with the Enneagram is it's not a cult or a personal faith, okay? So it does have a murky background, and I understand that keeps some from exploring it. And, we can talk about George Grujev and Oscar Echazo and their students in Berkeley, California. And there was, from what I've read, some misuse of the tool, but their misuse of it doesn't prevent me from benefiting from it. Does that make sense? So to me, it's less problematic about the Enneagram itself and its origins. In fact, a lot of it is rooted in the desert or monastic fathers way back. It's like an ancient tool that's been modernized. But it's less about what and more about whose hands is it in, who's teaching. And that's what I found. So it's not a cult or a personal faith. It does differ from standard personality tests. So some of you might have taken the Strengths Finder, when you're going to university, and it tells you what you can maximize in your strengths. I loved the Myers-Briggs, the ENFJ, the INT. You're a thinker or a feeler, you're introvert or extrovert. Maybe you have a combination, but you tend to lean one way or the other. And that one's used in business quite a bit. But it differs because I want us to look at that iceberg up there. It's looking at behavior on the surface, and it's not looking at why I do what I do. So the Enneagram looks at, why am I doing what I do? What's beneath the surface? And here's the cool thing. Only you know your motivations. I can't look above the water and say, oh, this is the behavior, so she's this type. This is the behavior, so he's a this type. Only you know your motivations. So we're going to get to that. And number 3, core motivations do not change. A lot of times I'll coach or talk to people who say, okay, I took the quiz, and I'm a 7 wing 3. I'm like, Wings are on either side of your dominant type, so it's like the salt and pepper to your steak. You don't take on those numbers, but they influence you, and we're going to get to that. Here's an overview of what it looks like. Okay, there's 9 types. Now what we're going to want to do is look at that, go, I'm that one, I'm that one. But give yourself permission and time, and I invite you in to just sitting back, relaxing, and hearing out the whole thing, and knowing that it can take time. It can take time because you have to be very self-aware and know yourself really well to identify this yourself instead of from an outside source, having a quiz tell you what you are. And a lot of them are well constructed, and we can get to that in a bit. But these are the 9 types. And what we're going to do is go through the 3 elements that comprise these types. So we have the 3 determinants. The first one is the triad. And I want you to pretend like you're driving your car. Okay, so the triad is like the windshield that you're looking out when you're driving. It's how we see the world at large. There's 3 different options within the triad. Next is the stance. That's how are we going to get there? Meaning, as a driver, how are we going to get our needs met? And the third component is the harmonic, which means how do you handle conflict? The bumps in the road, how do we handle that? So there's 3 different parts, and you're going to see that on your sheet, that we're going to identify the 3 different components and go through that together. And we'll be pausing at each juncture, and I'm going to play music, and you're going to turn to each other and visit and provide examples to give you a mental break, yes, but then also to analyze, okay, this was the last conflict I had, and here's how I handled it. Which 3 am I? Kind of process along the way. Okay, so let's start with our windshield. These are also called in literature the centers of intelligence. It's the heart, the mind, and the gut. We use these 3 centers every day. These centers support our survival by alerting us to needs for safety and security, approval and affection, power and control. So we need all 3. We prefer or prioritize one over the others. And which one is most significant to you? This is going to filter our experience. It's going to be how we see the world and help us plan where to go. In other words, it's going to set your agenda for what you value, what you prioritize. So keeping those in mind, heart, mind, and gut, and then those needs, I want you to think about the heart, the mind, and the gut. Okay, that's the best symbol I could find. Or gut. Okay, heart, mind, or gut. All right. Safety and security. Which one do you think that belongs in? Think to yourself. Which one values safety and security? Which one values approval and affection? Which one values power and control? Okay, I've heard some good students already giving answers out. That's good. I love it. Okay, the heart. You're going to experience feelings. If you're in the heart triad, you're experiencing feelings. You're relating to others emotionally. You're identifying the feelings and the reactions of others. And there's a great empathy and authentic relating and compassion at play here. Okay? If you're a mind, you like to gather information, generate ideas, discover patterns, analyze data, plan, and there's an objective analysis and astute insight at play. And if you're in the gut triad, you love to move, experience physical sensations, take action or inaction, and control your environment. So people in this triad are really taking effective action off gut instinct. Okay, so let's take approval and affection. Which triad is going to have the underlying subconscious approval and affection? Who's going to like that? Okay, the heart. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, you're correct. Tell them what they want, Tam. No, I'm kidding. Okay, the mind. What do you think the mind's going to value? Safety. The thinkers, dung, 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 scanning for safety and security. That's their primary value. And what about the gut? Power and control. Power and control. So some of the research is really interesting on this, and neuroscience is going to support this idea in different terms: thinking, acting, feeling. So we think at X speed. We process emotionally 10 times more than that. And we instinctively react 100 times more than that. Example for this, guys, you're moving away from the stove before you know what happened. Okay, that's instinctively. You're moving away before you even realize it. Okay, so these are so subconscious. We've really got to think about it. What is significant to me? Ask about this, because it's kind of like asking a fish. You know, if you heard, he's like, "What's water?" It's like, "Well, you're swimming in it." Okay, we are dealing with one of these triads primarily all the time. So here's another viewpoint, another way to look at it. If we don't get approval and affection, and that need isn't met, well, there's a real shame and sadness that can come up. And these are the emotions associated, the primary, emotion. I don't like to say, bad, just, helpful or unhelpful, kind of like an indicator light, someone had said. So real shame and sadness can occur. If we're not safe, if we're unsafe, there's a real fear and anxiety that presents itself. And if we lose our power and control in the gut, there's anger. It's something that tells us, hey, wait a minute, I'm here on this earth and I have something to say about it. So real anger arises there. So those are the feelings associated with the triad. Again, we got mind, fear, heart, approval, and gut, power, and control. Are we getting it? You guys kind of get it? Okay, so what I want you to do is look at this from another viewpoint. So now I'm going to give you the numbers. You see how we're doing this? Okay. All right. Hearts are 2, 3, and 4. They're beating. Okay. The mind, 5, 6, and 7. The gut, 8, 9, and 1. Another way to look at it, mind is fear, heart, shame, and gut is anger. All right, I want you to turn to your neighbor and say, what triad do you think you're in, and why do you think you're in that? I'm going to give us just a minute. Okay, so in your first blank, I want you to fill in what you think. Guys, this is not in ink. This isn't ink. This isn't blood is what I mean. You can change it, okay? So know that you can change it, and I'm hearing some, it depends. And you're right, it does depend. But don't let the mind trip you up there, because there is a pattern. There is a pattern. Yes, we're using all three, but we're motivated by one primary. It's either what's more important to me, what's more significant, maybe, approval from others, safety, or power. Okay, so that's the first blank. And when we look up here on our road trip, all right, we've got it checked off. We just went through, we did the best we could thinking about our windshield to the world. The next component is the stance. So I want us to talk about the stance. Let's pretend we're going on a road trip, and I want you to think about how you're going to move on this road trip. This is going to be determined by your engine. Do you have a supercharged engine? Are you medium or kind of slower moving engine? Okay, so the quality of movement here is important. Everyone's like, we're moms, we're all moving a little slower. I hear ya. Okay, specifically, turn the car on. Start turning on, yeah, okay. All right, stances are the engine that drives you. So in relation to others, we're asking, how do I get my needs met? How do I get my needs met? Do I tend to move against people, towards people, or away from people? None of these are bad, guys. We all have good to bring to the table, okay? So these are all needed, okay? There are three possible stances. The first one is the aggressive stance. This driver is going to say, follow me. They're going to move quickly ahead. They have that supercharged engine. They're at the front. They want to take charge. They want to lead. Being out in front and going after what they want is important to them. They're supercharged. They might be, if you're in the stance, you may say, hey, I want to lead and I want to take out the map and be showing where we go, and I want to be at the front, leading. Their orientation is future. So they're living in the present. They can remember the past, but they're particularly interested in the future. They move against obstacles to secure power and finish tasks quickly. So they're going to move against, when we say against people, we don't mean conflict, but what we're saying is, I don't really, I have a decision to make, and hey, honey, we're going on vacation, and here's kind of where I think we should go. And you have this idea, and you're moving forward aggressively to get the family on vacation. You're moving forward aggressively or assertively to get things done, and you don't feel that need to get a lot of input from the people around you because internally you have this idea and very strong feeling of where you should be going. Does that make sense? Y'all are staring at me, you're getting it? Okay, all right, good. Okay, so that would be our 3s, 7s, and 8s. They're in the aggressive stance. Another quote by this driver would be them getting behind the wheel and going, I got this. Okay, so I got this. That would be their
directions if you're his person.
the directionally challenged, see me afterwards. No. Okay, the dependent stance. This driver is going to say, let's do it the right way together. Let's do it the right way together. They've got a medium charged engine. They're 1s, 2s, and 6s. Okay? These people in this stance, members will move towards people to get their needs met. So they want to be in the middle with their friends a lot of times. They want to be in the middle. They want to, if the car breaks down, this person's right here, changes tires all the time. You know, there's a social network around them that they're very entrenched in and love. So they prefer to work within established frameworks and where they like when expectations are understood and they can adhere to these expectations for security. Their orientation to time is present, what's presently happening in the moment. So we're asking again, how do I get my needs met? These members are going to move towards people, and those are our 1, 2s, and 6s in the dependent stance. And what's kind of fun is once we do identify our number, you can relate with everybody in some way almost. So you'll notice that it's not always 2, 3s, and 4s grouped together, you know, and then later on you'll see this with the harmonics as well. So those are the dependent stance members. Okay, the withdrawing stance, they would say, I need time alone with myself. I need time alone with myself. And again, we all need time alone with ourselves at junctures, especially as mothers, but this is in relation to getting their needs met. They have this very rich internal world into which they are able to withdraw, and they have great depth and authenticity for life. These are our 4, 5s, and 9s. And you know, how we get our needs met does impact how we make decisions. So you'll see members in this group moving away from people. They tend to like to be at the back of the caravan on the road trip. They want to be at the back so they can pull off if need be. And yes, I mentioned the depth and a very rich inner world. So these are our friends in the withdrawing stance. And again, to review those stances, do you tend to be aggressive, saying, follow me? Do you like to be in the middle with community, doing it together? Or the withdrawing stance, really needing to pull away and retreat to think, to get your needs met, to make decisions? I want you to choose one friend to the left or to the right to dialogue with about this. And what I want us to focus on is an example, maybe a big decision that had to be made or how you function in day-to-day life. When you're making decisions, what group do you think you're in and why? Go ahead and take a minute. We've identified our stance. So that's the second component, the second determinant. So go ahead and fill in your second blank on your chart. I am in the blank stance. Aggressive, dependent, or withdrawing. How are we doing? Are we a little lost? Are we tracking? Okay, connecting? Okay, good. So many decisions, yes. The 3, 7s, and 8s are like, so many decisions. Yeah. Okay, and the last determinant that we're going to be focusing on today is our harmonic. And your harmonic is how you handle bumps in the road of life, how you handle conflict, how you handle roadblocks as a driver. Okay, so since the goal is really self-awareness and compassion, I'm going to invite you, as I say the word conflict, What do you find that bringing up in you? It's more what you find yourself doing naturally. When I say conflict, leaning away, moving in. How do you feel about conflict? How do you respond to challenges? The harmonics represent 3 ways of dealing with difficulty. There's the reactive group. This group is going to value raw emotion. The competency group. They're focused on finding solutions objectively. Or the positive outlook group. And they really value optimism in conflict. Okay. Now, we're all trying to get to the rainbow after the storm. So, let's consider which best represents your approach to conflict. And we're going to start with our reactive reds. Okay, the red, or the reactive group, they, again, prioritize organic emotion. This driver may lay on the horn, give them a little beep beep, let them know you're there, They experience and express strong emotions in an attempt to be understood. They voice concern and feelings, and they might say, this is bothering me, and it should bother you too. So they tend to really lean into the emotion and perhaps intensify conflict to be heard, to be expressed. Okay, that's our reactive reds. Now, and we'll get to the caution cones again. I have a caution for each group too. The competency group, let's do it now. Okay, these finished up at about 5 a.m. this morning, so I'm like, all right, well, whatever you decided to do. I don't know if that was me, Ethan, or my 5-year-old. Okay, all right. So the caution cone here, what do you think? If they tend to intensify conflict, what would be a good caution cone for them? What do you think?
Don't freak out.
If it was your child, and your child, as all children do, it's actually very healthy, but they intensify their feelings, okay? If an adult is doing that, then maybe the caution cone would be to moderate your approach. Moderate your approach. Okay, the competency group, their proclamation is objectivity. Objectivity. This driver is a competent driver who uses the blinker in crisis. They put aside emotion and want to focus on the facts. They want to solve problems logically. And as a result, they may put feelings on the back burner. So they're really able to see something logically and really get to the solution of the conflict. And this may mean that as they put feelings on the back burner, that will all come up eventually. But typically the way they handle it is, I'm going to logically find a solution. So what do you think is the caution cone for those in this group?
Share.
To share? Okay, what else? What do you think? I love this group participation time, guys. I say the same thing at Bible study. We get too formal. I just shout it out. We're real here. So you guys, let me know. Competency group, if they are putting feelings on the back burner, I like that. Share. What else? Don't overthink. Okay, because they are relying on the mind quite a bit to make those decisions. I also think recognizing feelings as valuable sources of information is important for this group. So we move towards them curiously and we engage with them. They like to work within the system, but they don't necessarily want to be restricted by it. So and this is a 1, 3, competency is 1, 3, and 5. So many of them want to work within the system, but don't want to be restricted by it. And I would say 5s reject the system entirely. Okay, positive outlook group. Their proclamation is optimism. Optimism. This driver is positive and waves others through, looks for openings, or tends to wait. You know, we've all seen that car over on Dallas North Tollway, crazy, you know, kind of like in the middle, like I'm just gonna wait here. I wasn't sure if I was going on George Bush or the Tollway, but I'm just gonna wait here, turn on my blinker, and wait my turn, okay? And they value optimism. They're gonna reframe disappointment in a positive way. Like, the baby didn't sleep last night, but you know what, it's okay, because this is this. They're really quick to get to that positive reframe, and they like to look on the bright side. As a result, this group is often conflict avoidant. Conflict avoidant. And so, thinking about the positive outlook greens, what do you think would be their caution cone? What do y'all think? They don't like conflict, they like to avoid it. What do you think?
Conflict is okay.
Conflict is okay, I like that. Conflict is okay.
Don't be a doormat.
Don't be a doormat, okay. All right, so maybe valuing negative information too would be good. Knowing that negative information is valuable to us, that conflict is in a large degree healthy. And so the idea is you can tolerate less than positive. You can. And so instead of avoiding it now, if you address it, it could lead to a positive future experience. So that's the idea there. Okay, so keep that in mind. We've got the reactive group, the competency group, and the positive outlook group. We're going to do this one more time, and just hang in there if you're not.
Can you share the numbers on
Oh,
the first
sure.
one and the last one, please?
Okay, so let's see, reactive group. Okay, reactive group is going to be 4s, 8s, and 6. If I'm remembering that. Competency, 1, 3, 5, and positive outlook, 7, 9, and 2. All right. All right, take a minute and talk to your neighbors about which one do you think that you're in. All right, entering your last blank, I am in the blank harmonic. I am in the blank harmonic. It might help too to think of the most recent conflict or conflict across like the inner people in your circle, because it typically goes, you know, family, friends, and out from there. So thinking about how you handle conflict with those close to you is helpful here. Okay, are y'all feeling good? It's our last blank. Emily, I'm going to have you on standby, and what we're going to do is look over all 3 determinants. So can you kind of see how this is maybe more informs our thinking than a quiz? I am going to go through all 9 types. Lord willing, we have time here. But I'm going to go through all three types, but right now we talked about our triads, our stances, and our harmonics. And please do not fear, because if you can't find it through what you do, then there's a secondary way you can find it through your line of stress or disintegration coming up. A lot of times we know what we do that's not helpful or doesn't serve ourselves or others. So you have a triad, a stance, and a harmonic. They're passing out the chart, and you're going to plug all of these in and determine your primary type. Okay, so let's give you a minute to do this, and if you're between two, maybe circle those two and just say, we're going to explore this more. There's no pressure to find it in this moment, but just kind of understanding and more awareness. So what you're doing is you're going through, let's say you're a heart, dependent, and positive outlook. So then you're a 2. Okay, if you have a combination that doesn't work with one type, then you're probably off on 1. Or it's probably so subconscious that you're acting out and you're not even realizing it, because we've got the 10-time processing speed, the 100-time, and then over from there. So really it's a lot of exploratory type things, like maybe you say, oh, I thought I was that one. But just hold on to that, because you'll get clarity in a minute as we go through each of the types. It should be, clear to you which one that you gravitate towards. But if you're between 2 right now, there's no problem. So, okay, how many of you think that from today that you either reinforced your type or found your type? Okay, great. How many of you are not sure? Okay, a couple not sure. Okay, we're going to continue to clarify this and move along together. We're looking at the 9 types, and we're going to start with the 1s. They're in some literature called the perfectionist. I prefer the reformer, because when we say perfectionist, we get this idea that they have a perfect house and a perfectly clean car, and it's really more moral perfection and moral goodness that the 1s are concerned about. There's this desire to not be corrupt, but to be good. Okay, so that's my description of the 1s. As we go through each of the types, I'm going to define each type, tell you their fear, their core need, the problem. There's a vice to each gift, a virtue to each gift, and basically what they offer the world. What is your gift that you offer the world as your type? Okay. So 1s want to be right, to have integrity and balance. They want to strive higher and improve others. And they also want to be beyond criticism. They tend to go towards what's missing or lacking or wrong initially. So the fear is being bad. That's the fear, being not good. Their need is to be perfect. Now the problem is when they reject their ability to let down their guard, to improve others, because they're constantly improving and can walk in a room and say, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, very easily, then they don't get this playfulness or fun that everyone needs to have. And what happens is they end up limiting their self-acceptance. So, when we do this and criticize ourselves, it often flows out from ourselves and onto others, typically the ones we love most. So that's the problem. The vice for the 1, who remembers what triad they're in? Are they in the heart, mind, or gut? Gut. Okay, good. And being a gut, having a gut triad member, they're going to struggle with which emotion? Sadness, fear, or anger? Anger. It's more accurately, resentment is a more accurate term of how it's expressed. So they can practice the virtue of serenity to be free of resentment. Isn't that cool? You just practice serenity to be free of resentment. The gift that they offer to the world is that 1s remind us to not settle, to show up, to do your part, and to participate in the world in an excellent way. And I know many ones, and there's, again, 7 different levels of health. We can go way deep into subtypes, and we can go, we're just skimming the surface, honestly. But there's lots of different expressions of 1, and depending on, so given a 1, I'm starting with a difficult number, but what's their wing? What are their wings? 9 and 2. So when I'm coaching someone, they say I'm a 1 wing 8. I'm like, oh boy, we got to start all the way back at the beginning. And there's a lot of misinformation. But yes, 1s have that 9 wing and the 2 wing. And just like we're right or left hand dominant, guys, we're going to lean into 1 wing more than the other. We're going to typically prefer 1, but you have both. So there's some myths out there that you have 1 wing. Well, you've 1 preferred wing, but it's the salt and pepper to your steak. So you see how the 1s can become more balanced with the peace of the 9 and the helpfulness of the 2. Now, when they are in their best state, the 1s take on the positive qualities of the 7. So typically you'll hear the 1s say, when I go on vacation, I mean, we're all better on vacation, right? But especially the 1s, it does something for them because it ignites this joy and playfulness and almost effervescence of the 7, and so they take on those positive qualities. When they are stressed and integrated, they're going to take on the negative or unhelpful qualities of the 4. So they're going to be more, irrational and moody, more like a 4 would be. And those are our 1s. Okay? The 2s.
That was good.
The 2s are helpers. So this is why I say don't take the quiz, because there's so many women, especially Southern women, who mistype as 2s. And so that's why I'm really into looking at the core motivations and the underlying capacities with each type. It's very important for us to understand. So 2s are helpers. And again, we're entering which triad? Heart, mind, or gut? We're beginning with the heart. So 2s, they really want that approval and affection. And 2s have learned along the way, which from what I've read, you've got The Road Back to You, The Wisdom of the Enneagram, there's several different books that are helpful. From what I've read, I think there was like a subtext or like a footnote referencing a podcast and a book, and that book had in it information about how our types do not change. So, some people say, I used to be a 2, but now I'm an 8, or I used to do this. The types are altogether biological. Now, our childhood wound, that will reinforce what's already pre-existent. Have you heard about it before, too, like you have certain genes that have predispositions to different things, and your environment can turn on or off those genes in times of stress. Have you heard that? So, you may have the makings for, a certain disease, and in times of stress or need or, lack of abundance, you can turn on those. It's kind of the same thing. So the helpers have learned along the way. Our 2s have learned that love needs to be earned through what you can give or offer. So they scan the world for need and really want to fill that need. The fear is being selfish. So we need to reframe selfish, guys, because Jesus himself wasn't even meeting needs 24/7. Okay, he pulled away to pray, and in rest, that is also giving to others around us as we give to ourselves. So the need really, it's sad. The need is to be needed. The need is I need to be needed. And the problem with the 2s is that sometimes they cross boundaries meeting needs into other people's territory. So they're going to limit connection with those individuals, particularly those within the withdrawn stance, our 4, 5s, and 9s. A lot of times 2s try to enter into their area and they didn't ask for that. And so there's really the vice for the 2 is pride. What's the middle letter of pride? My table knows it from Bible study. Yeah, I, okay? And it sounds strange because it's like, wait a second, but they're the servants. They're the ones that are serving everyone. What do you mean that it's pride? Well, it's this unwillingness to admit need. To say, hey, I have needs and here's how you can help me. You will very rarely hear them saying that unless they're in their line of integration, which the 2s go to the 4. they go to the romantic creative individualist who knows themselves very well. The 4s tend to spend a lot of time explaining who they are and expressing that. So they're going to look more like a 4 in health, and in stress they're going to take on the negative qualities of the 8, of the challenger. So they're not going to be nurturing themselves and emotionally aware. They're going to be more aggressive and dominating, like the 8. And the gift that they offer the world is really their ability to call us outside of ourselves and look for opportunities. So those are our 2s and how their gift to us and to the world. Okay, we're going to move to 3. The 3s that are the achievers. This type is constantly achieving and seeking success. Oh, it is incredible how much 3s can get done. They are so efficient and productive in short amounts of time. And they believe their subconscious childhood wound or their subconscious belief is, I have value because of what I do or what I accomplish. And that image and that projection is very important to them. So whereas the 2s say, I am what I'm able to give you, so I can't have any needs because I got to be able to give you to have value. The 3s say, I am what I do. I'm doing. And the idea is like the Titanic. Like you're moving deck chairs around, like the ship's still going down, right? But I'm doing stuff. By golly, I'm moving stuff. Okay? So that's the 3s. And their fear is fear of failure. Really via stagnation. They have this great need to be successful and valuable. And they will be valuable to you. They will find a way. Oftentimes it can be in a chameleon-like way, depending on who they're with. They can take on qualities to help you rise to the fullness of who you should be. And the problem with the 3s is almost this loss of identity. If they're climbing mountaintops, they find themselves climbing the next mountaintop and the next mountaintop, and then they're like, why am I even up here? And it's kind of like they're doing things for value. And so, the vice is deceit. Deceit. Not so much trying to deceive others, but in the way they've deceived themselves. And they've deceived themselves through saying, hey, I am this image, and I've got to keep up this image. So they can practice what virtue, do you think? If deceit is the vice, and they're kind of masked to task it. They mask it to task it. How about that? Okay. A mask it, a task it, a grin. I haven't used the word task it in a while. Okay, so they mask it to task it. They want to get things done. They want to be productive. They want to be valuable. So what's the virtue? Well, they can practice truthfulness, not exaggerating to get others' approval, but truthfulness or authenticity. And what are the 3's wings? 2 and 4. 2 and 4 are the wings. Now in health, the 3 is going to look more like the loyalist, the positive qualities of the 6. Not a big burst of energy, but just step by step, day by day, completing tasks with faithfulness and loyalty. And by the way, your 3 friends, they're really good at asking them over coffee, like if you take a 3 out to coffee and you say, hey, where am I limiting my potential? They would be saying, hey, yeah, you're too maxed out here. You need to get support to be your full self. They're great friends for that. So they are a gift in that they are so inspiring and they really motivate us to come to our fullness, our vitality, our aliveness of self. 3s invite us into that, so they can be really motivating. In disintegration, they're going to take on the characteristics, the slothful characteristics of the 9. And so they're going to, instead of looking, calling others into greatness, they're going to become more apathetic. Okay, let's move to our 4s. The individualist, this is the type that tends to buck against the goads on Enneagram, and when I speak with them, I want to make sure that I can speak with them about the Enneagram without saying the word Enneagram, just by asking questions. So the way we shut down people is you walk in and you go, honey, guess what? You're a 4. You're so a 4. You're definitely a 4. Well, you're looking at the behavior and you're assuming that, but what you could do is ask questions like, hey, do you find yourself withdrawing to get your needs met? Is that helpful for you? And there's a more kind, compassionate, congruent way to go about talking to them. But the Enneagram is not a filing system for humans because we're so unique and different. And this type is specifically oriented to that. So a lot of times they want to know what's missing. They're focused on finding their identity and creatively expressing that outwardly. So they have this intense, deep understanding of who they are, and they're on a quest to find this on the outside. So looking to fill the hole that they think is missing. And the sad part about it is they are unique and they are significant, but they feel that they don't have the tools to be significant, so they settle for being misunderstood. Or the tragedy of others not knowing them, so often this lamenting comes into play. The fear is being ordinary, boring, or inauthentic, and the need is to be distinctive, aka not ordinary, and they are very inclined to like the unusual or the unique. So as they're looking outside of themselves, what comes into play is the vice of envy, where they're looking at others and trying to find the missing piece. And the virtue is going to be, this is an old word, so we have to tease it out a bit, equanimity. So more balanced emotion. So the work that we do with the fours is really more mindset than anything. It's not so much adding. In fact, I think spirituality is actually more about subtraction than addition. But we work on mindset, and the gift that they have is in feeling the range of human emotion. That in this range that there's beauty and there's wonder, and so there's this really neat romance of the ordinary. So like the way the rain is falling is significant. The heaviness of this book in my hands is significant. When I'm walking, seeing every color and every leaf, and having this rich inner world they retreat within. And so, the 3s, 7s, and 8s, they might be like, I'm on my way, point A to point B, point A to point B, I'm on my way. Where the 4 is really inviting us to look around us. So they demand authenticity in such a deep and beautiful way. Okay, we'll hurry. On a 1, they're integrated, they become more, so their emotional depth, the emotionality of the 4 embraces order of the 1. So they take on the positive qualities of the 4, that they're completing tasks and responsibility connected. And then in stress, they're going to look more like the negative qualities of the 2, which is looking to others for significance. And that will stifle their gift of expression as they're looking outside themselves. Okay, 5 is the investigator. And I chose this very professor-type color for them, this dark purple. I don't know if it's because I played Clue growing up. Wasn't there a Professor Plum? We're really kicking it back. With a tisket, a tasket, Professor Plum. What else? Okay. All right. The investigator. The methodical and logical type 5s are competitive and capable. They can take care of themselves, and they think others should do the same. So they are well-informed. They are known to be mysterious and guarded in what they give and what they keep private. So they're focused on being competent and capable, and have really built their lives around becoming an expert in a certain subject before they speak to it. And they will continue their journey throughout life becoming an expert on something specific. Their fear is being incompetent. From what I've read, I also like the idea outwitted. I don't want to be outwitted. They need to perceive, and they need to rightly, what did I put there? Oh, like an expert, yeah. They need to perceive like an expert would perceive something. The problem is that it can feel like, to our 5s, it can feel like the world is a very invasive place. So because it's invasive, they're very guarded about what they give. So the measure would be not being tight-fisted, but being open-handed. The idea of like, God has given to me so I can give to others, but they're always kind of calculating how much they're giving and their energy resources and how much energy they have. So that would be the 5. And their fear is going to be like I said, being incompetent. Oh, the vice is avarice, another old word, avarice. Who knows what avarice means? Yeah, withholding, or yeah, keeping it to yourself. So the virtue would be what? Generosity. And so they are a gift in their amazing logical system that they give us. When they're healthy, they look more like an 8. And why would the 5 take on the qualities of an 8? Well, because they're more decisive, right? They're taking imperfect action. They're moving forward imperfectly like an 8 might. Okay, and when they're disintegrated, they're going to look more like a 7, which is more hyperactive and scattered. Okay, we're almost to the end. You guys are doing amazing. Number 6, these are type 6, the loyalist. The loyalist. Which triad are they in? The mind, because they're always scanning for what's important to them as a mind. Safety and security. They value faithfulness, loyalty, consistency, and they are dependable. Now, they are skeptical of things that are new and unknown, but once they test that out, they are faithful to the core. They are loyal to you to the core. So there's often this push and pull with authority, but once that's tested, they're good to go. The fear is that something bad will happen, and the vice is, they have to be certain and secure. That's a big need for them. And I want to say it's fear, but it's not. Fear is what's right in front of us. It's amazing how deep their minds go into what could possibly go wrong. So fear is right in front of us. That's what we handle. The anxiety is like what might happen potentially. And that feels real, and it's not. It's not real. So they need to practice the virtue of courage. So when we feel fear, what do? I know we freeze, fight, fawn, but typically shrink back in fear. So courage is stepping forward. And they can ask what's lacking, not what's possible to be lacking. When they're healthy, they're going to look more like the 9. They're going to have the peace of a 9, calm, easygoing, and a restful mind. And in stress, they're going to look more like a 3, where they're taking on the negative qualities of the achiever, which are, I need to keep up this image, I need to do more, and perhaps be more competitive as well. Okay, 7s, what's the name of the 7? Enthusiast. Okay, the enthusiast. They're joyful, spontaneous, and positive. If they get distracted, it's typically because they're excited. And they want to be satisfied in life. They want to find joy in everything and experience, and have experiences, especially new ones, especially new friendships, especially new experiences. It's also highly valued by the 7s. So they love, new possibilities, and last-minute adventures are right in their wheelhouse. They have a high running motor with this intense pressure to make this most of this one life that we have. So no stone unturned. The 7s want to seek options and freedom and not be limited. They kind of want to bust out of being a limitation. They want that freedom. So the fear is the opposite of freedom, right? Fear is, I fear that I'm going to be trapped in emotional pain. That's my fear. Or limited. So they need to avoid pain. And the picture I get for the 7s, it's like a bucket with the holes cut out the bottom. So there's this insatiability that no matter how much I pour in, I can never have enough baseball, never have enough shopping, never have enough friends. It's this insatiability. And so the vice is gluttony. Not with food, though it can be, but it's this insatiability for things and for more and more and more. And so the ego wants to add, and really the idea here is like a lot of these people like Lent because they have to take away something. It's so contrary to their typical practice that going without really means a lot to the 7s. And they really call us into this gift of great exuberance and joy. And they can practice, so since the vice is gluttony, the virtue is sobriety. If they practice sobriety, they can be rid of their typical pattern of gluttony. Okay, in health, the enthusiast, is going to look like a 5. They're going to become more integrated as a 5, more focused and fascinated. And then see how the stress line goes to 1. When they're in stress, they're going to become more rigid, critical, and perfectionistic like the 1. Okay, almost done here. The challenger, type 8. Type 8s fiercely protect their people, and especially the weak. And they maintain an image of being the strong one. And so what I like to say for the 8s is, it's easy to be tough, and it's hard to be vulnerable for this type. They're going to push against that. They do not want to expose weakness. They are the most focused type on prioritizing their strength and hiding their vulnerability. They are typically forward-moving, generous, and powerful people, very energetic and intense. And they enjoy a good verbal skirmish just to see what you're made of. Okay, let's duke it out. Let's see what's in your guts. Come on at me. Saying no is not a problem for this type, typically. 8s are confident, capable, and can handle it. Their fear is being weak or admitting weakness, and their need is intensity. How are they moving? Against people, with people, or away? They're in the aggressive stance, so they're moving where? Y'all shout out. Against. They're moving against. There's this intensity. They feel like they can't let their guard down, and they can't be vulnerable. And so I always say, sure, you're respected, but you need to be loved. And in order to be loved, we got to let down that guard a little bit. So the vice for the 8s is lust. Not in a sexual way per se, though it could be. But the 8s have this pushing and intensity. And so it's a lust for intensity. Otherwise, I don't feel alive. And then, oh no. So the 8s really want to push forward in intensity. Lust is the vice, as we described it. And now the virtue for the 8s is if they practice innocence. Innocence. In other words, practicing vulnerability and facing life with an open heart. So you can see how the 8s go to what number? 2. They become more like 2s when they're integrated, more caring, more open-hearted. There's a lot of 8-2 couples. You don't have to be. There's lots of 1s and 7s together, 3s and 9s, because a lot of times we are drawn to people, particularly partners, kind of mirroring what we need, not in a not romantic way, but they show us what we're missing in life. So a lot of 2s and 8s are coupled. In disintegration, 8 is going to look like a 5, and so more fearful and secretive in stress. And 8s can be a bit more reactionary. They are in the gut triad, and they have the anger as the emotion and that intensity. But you know what's the gift of the 8s that I love is that you get to relax. There's this element of like, I know where I stand with you at all times, and you're going to say what you think. And in that, there's not really any guessing, and so it's kind of nice. Last one, and then I do want to take a question. The peacemaker are the 9s. And they are kind, agreeable, peaceful, relaxed, easygoing, and pleasant. 9s are the ones who are focused on maintaining their calm and their peace inside. They fear loss of connection and will do anything to avoid conflict. And they want to create a space in which everyone feels safe and valid to express themselves. So really with the 9s, I say, your voice is needed. Your voice is important in this. They fear conflict, and they need to be peaceful internally. So it's a stubbornness. Now, it's a quiet stubbornness because they're not saying no, but they're not doing it either. Okay? So the problem is they're not peacemaking, they're peace-faking because they're avoiding conflict. And avoiding conflict is really a silencing of themselves. And so the vice is sloth. And now, not to say they can't be hard workers or they can't be engaged, but it's this unwillingness to arise to who I am, who I was created to be, and in its fullness. It's a desire to really remain unaffected. And so, or resist being affected might be a better way for me to put it. And they practice the virtue of right action or engagement. So if you're looking for a tattoo, engagement for the nines. To awaken their passion and not underestimate themselves. In their health, what do you think they're going to look like? Who said that? Good job. They're going to look like a 3. Do you know this? Did you guess this? Good job. Okay, and they're going to be energetic task completers like the 3s, and in their disintegration, they're going to take on the worrisome, lots of energy given to worry and possibility of negative outcomes like the 6. Whew. I did it. We did it. We did the best we could. We went through all 9 types. And anyway, the gift is that the 9s are great mediators. They can hear all the perspectives. And they're the friends you take out to coffee, and you're like, oh, this sister did me wrong. And they're like, have you thought about it from her point of view? You're like, don't say that. Just be on my side. They are great mediators. So that's it. Okay, what questions do we have?
We don't have time.
Oh, we don't have time. Somebody screenshot the Slidos, and I'll answer them in our group. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Ran over on time. But thank you.
We can do a Q&A on the Facebook
Okay,
group or something.
cool. All right, thank you guys for having me.